It's so crazy. I had a dream that we did this, and it was like in the back of an SUV, and it was just terrible. Like, you guys like hated me. You guys would not respond to anything. I was just like, oh, this is incredibly hostile. And I was like, what the happened? And then woke up, I was like, well, thank God. Weird thing to dream about, but all right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Dodgeball Podcast. August 3rd was an incredible weekend with all the dodgeball taking place with the WDA and WDC all happening concurrently. And with so much happening, here to help me recap what went down this weekend is Nick Factoran, returning guest Paige Peterson, and Mick Wood. Guys, thank you so much for hopping on this afternoon. And, let's just dive right into it. Let's just go ahead and start with the introductions. Give me your full name, team, role you had in UDC, which one it was for you, and where you're originally from, and we'll go from there. Start with you, Nick.
All right, Nick Factoran, part of the referee team. I was one of the head officials there this weekend, and I have been a part of the UDC since, I guess, its inception 7 years ago. I did a lot of playing. And I stopped playing, 2016 was my last season, and I started reffing 2017, which was last year in Chicago, and then this year. So that's awesome. What I was doing.
And you're based out of LA, right?
Yeah, I play mostly in LA, live in Orange County.
Awesome. And you, Mick?
Hey, I'm Mick Wood. I play on Team Tutha. This is our first year in, I guess, the championships in Chicago. Tutha started about 3 years ago, and I played in the Van Nuys qualifier with myself and a couple other random guys that I met playing there. And then last year, I played with my typical squad, and then this year we picked up Trey and Daniel, and this is our first official championship going from the qualifier. And I'm originally from Los Angeles, California.
Gotcha. And what a debut, right? I mean, took it all, so.
Yeah, definitely was an eye opener for us to see what we're all capable of.
I think for the rest of the world too. We'll definitely dive into that. But before we do so, Paige, how about you?
I'm Paige Peterson. I played with Vendetta this weekend. This was, you guys know, the first women's division that the UDC had, so it was a first for everyone. But I'm from Arizona originally, live in Chicago, and then we have 2 girls from Minnesota, and then 2 other girls from California, so a little bit of a spread out team.
Awesome. And this was first women's, and we'll get into that too, but then is this your first UDC, or had you played in previous?
Yeah, this is my first UDC. Ashley is the only one that has played in a previous UDC, I think.
Dang, again, another amazing debut. So, congratulations to both of you guys, Mick and Paige. Definitely want to get into that. But let's just go ahead and start with just like high level. It's obviously been a week since. It'll be 2 weeks by the time this episode's released. But what were your thoughts overall on that weekend that you can recollect, starting with Nick?
Well, this whole weekend, it's been pretty, like you said, it was well branded. And we had a very, really good showing across social media. It was amazing to look at when the days were done. But then also organizationally, this was one of the best UDCs that has gone on that I can remember. Mick, you might say, you can chime in on this. But the way everything was run and how smoothly everything went with the refs and all the staff involved. I think this was one of the best ones they've held since they've started.
Yeah, I wrote in the script a comment about branding, and I just completely botched it, so I just went for something simple. But so I was at drill, so I didn't get to see too much, but my Facebook feed was just littered with dodgeball, just all across, from the UDC to WDA. But with UDC specifically, I was like, holy crap, these are people I know, these are people I've hung out with, I've played against, that are looking like like athletes. Like the branding was just so on point, and it was so fast too. Like these weren't, you know, stock photos from last year or years previous. This was like happening as the event was taking place. And you know, I compare it to like watching Sunday night or Monday Night Football, like an actual production with lots of money thrown into it, and it just looked so crisp. Why do you think why do you think it was so branded and done so well? Is it just 7 times the charm, or new leadership, new management, or what do you think contributed to that?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Mick, if you want to take it, go for it.
I mean, I was just going to chime in on what you stated, and this is our first UDC showing up to this, but I've watched videos of every year, everything that's on YouTube that has UDC attached to it. I've watched all of those videos, and seeing the production value alone, like pictures, how quick they're going up and how fast they're going up, and the quality of it. You know, it could be a 7th times the charm, but I think that everybody kind of this year going into it knew that, like, you know, with the branding of USA, with the branding of everything that's going on and how professional we're trying to make it, I think that kind of got into people's head. And I think that everybody on the crew knew that. You know, I think Jake Mason had a good influence on people and like helping brand just dodgeball as a sport, you know, and I think that had a big impact on everybody working there as well.
For sure. I definitely want to dive into that too. A couple questions from now, but what were your, again, going back a little bit, you know, it's been a week past. What are your thoughts overall? Just like, if you can sum up, I won't say like the entire experience, just in a couple sentences, how would you do so? I mean, I kind of, we're still, I mean, a lot of us have talked about it afterwards, and it still hasn't really hit us. We feel like, you know, we finished, it happened, and we went back to the hotel, and we were all like, you know, psyched, and we won. And then we all flew home, and we're psyched that we won, but we're still, something was just like, we're still kind of trying to realize that it had happened, you know, because, you know, there's all the pressure of everybody, you know, trying to take down the top teams and come in for our first time, and everybody thinks we can do this, you know. And so there was a lot of pressure as me as a captain, you know, having 7 guys on my team, and there was a lot of pressure trying to, you know, prove people wrong, prove people right. And I think to sum up everything, we're still trying to figure out how to sum it up. You know, we're all ecstatic and excited of what happened, but it's still a surreal moment. Still processing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, you know, by the time this airs, this will be, you know, 2 weeks after the fact. So maybe you can comment on, okay, we got it now. We feel fantastic, or we're ready for the next one.
In 2 weeks, we'll be very pumped and ready to go. We'll probably, I haven't played any dodgeball this whole week, really. So I think once I start playing again and getting back into it and going back to my rec leagues and having fun, I think that'll be
get back into it again
when we're pumped.
Awesome, just in time for Elite Nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And how about you, Paige? How would you sum up just everything high level?
God, I mean, this was the first UDC that I've ever been to, so it was like I had nothing to compare it to, but I thought it was so good, just especially the reffing, having so many refs on every single court. Yeah. So having so many refs, it was like, if I wasn't sure about a call, I trusted the call that they made. Even if I didn't think it was right, I was like, all right, you know, there's 6 of them. They could probably see more than I can. So I really appreciated having a lot of refs. Yeah. And also the production value of it. So having it uploaded online, like as we're playing, it was so useful to go back home at night and watch film, like really good film, and listen to the commentary. I mean, Britt Mazerow was awesome. So I really enjoyed like being able to go watch the games right after they happened and kind of see stuff for myself. It's
kind of like
really good. Really
experience
good.
In third person.
Yeah.
Did you ever see yourself like being able to do that, just going from your humble days at NCDA and Tucson, and then just while I'm watching myself online and eventually like, I think ESPN in this high production, amazing high stakes game or platform? Did you ever see that happening?
I didn't ever think that the dodgeball itself would ever be like at this level, I guess. You know, and a lot of people know about Skyzone, whether they play or not. So it reached a lot of people this weekend.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's been a great week for dodgeball content. Just the stuff that's coming out is stuff I'm proud of and want to point people to whenever they ask, like, oh, you play dodgeball? I'm like, yeah, I do actually, and this is what it looks like. This is very well presented. But I kind of want to go into some of the stuff that Nick brought up, and that's how did this UDC differ in comparison to the previous ones, especially since you've been at all of them. So I think you're a pretty good reference. Kind of talked about like Jake Mason and his branding. Well, not his branding, but the branding that was brought in. But this was Jake's first UDC. Is that correct?
This is not Jake's first UDC. He's been a part of the past, I want to say 3 or at least 3 or 4. He was in Vegas at least a couple of times. But this was his first year being assistant director.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah, so it was Jamie Martino was the head director of UDC this year, and then Jake was actually helping her out as the assistant.
Okay, yeah, that's what I meant, because I remember watching, I don't know, maybe it was like an Instagram story or a video or a picture, and he was with the UDC crew, and it was something about it was new, and so he's now stepped up and is an assistant director for UDC now?
That's
okay.
right. He was like on-air talent for the first couple years.
That's
so
right.
Interviewing teams and stuff.
Very cool. And then, so we have that going, and then we also have a women's division. That's new, right? That was one of the major differences this time going in.
Yeah, that was the one thing they wanted to focus on for 2018 was to bring in this new women's division. 8 women's teams invited. Pretty much, I think that was all headed up by Jamie and Jake. They wanted to bring in the best talent from around the world, and Jake made it happen.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's a really cool video that the UDC page released, I think today, where it's got some of the players talking about, it's the women's division, and it's been long past since due that they have one. And I think that just aired today, so hopefully that gets circulated. But again, it just goes back up to that awesome production quality of content that's going out there. Like, hey, I know that voice. Like, that's holy crap, that's Andrew Ketchum talking. This is great. We already kind of covered the commentary. I think Brittany and Dave, how long have they been doing the commentary?
At least since 2015.
2015, gotcha. And then I saw Lucas on there and somebody else, another player. I didn't get to watch it fully, but were there other commentators, or was it just those two primarily?
No, Lucas and Bill were commenting through the quarterfinals of the top 8. So they're both Seattle-based players, really intelligent. Lucas headed up the stats team, and big ups to him because right at the beginning on Thursday, before the whole thing kicked off, he came up to me. He's like, "Hey, do you think these teams are going to be able to do these stat sheets for me?" And I looked at the sheets and I said, "Oh man, I don't know. That's a lot of work for like other people to do while they're trying to focus on their game. I don't know, Lou. Maybe, but don't put too much faith in it." But I mean, everyone stepped up and came through with the stats, and as you could see from what they had from the production, it was amazing.
Yeah, stats is just a whole nother wonderful, awesome element to dodgeball, and bringing into again that whole like production feel. So did he like approach you guys to do that, and was that something that was volunteered through the dodgeball community, like from Lucas, or was that asked for? I guess like how did it happen? Like how did you guys get stats into this UDC?
That was actually part of the production team. So Mad City did a really good job with the production, and they hired Lucas to do the stats. So he was actually the head statistician for the entire weekend. And so he was the one compiling all that for Mad City as part of their production crew.
That's awesome. Very cool.
And that video you were talking about for the intro to the women's division, they actually made that the day of the top 8 to air, right, Mick?
Yeah, they interviewed all of us I think it was that morning or the day before. I can't remember when exactly it was, but it came out. I mean, all the stuff they did, the interviews and everything, and their little intros for each team, they did everything right then and there. And again, talking about how fast they were, Mad City put a lot of effort into this,
so,
and another thing I wanted to bring up about the stats. I mean, Lucas did an amazing job providing that for everybody, but also all the people that like stepped up and helped out with him. There were a lot of people that were hesitant on doing it at the start, but he'd just come up to anybody random that was part of the team or a friend of the team and say, hey, can you take stats for them? And people stepped up and definitely helped that out a lot, and that helped out the community a lot. And all the entertainment value of this was very helpful.
That's so awesome. So it was like the community was producing and helping as well as UDC. It wasn't just UDC doing everything by themselves. Like there's a lot of contribution on both sides.
Yeah, it seemed like that, and I'm not sure how Mad City and UDC coordinated together, but I know they handled, I believe, the entire. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they handled all the stream. I think the photography was by Mason Studios, I believe. I can't remember if that's his studio, but they handled the stream and they handled all those interviews and all the intros for each team. And the fact that they were shot and edited and put up the next day before we all played, I thought that was, again, part of the professionalism of the sport, and I think that really was incredible for us to see, especially.
Yeah, and so that's what I meant, again, going to like watching a Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football production is like, they have a really cool play that happened, and then before the commercial break, you see like a repeat or you see like a still image of that. It's just so cool watching dodgeball get that treatment finally. I've heard of Mad City being mentioned a few times, but can one of you guys kind of clue me in on what they are exactly? Is it just like a streaming company, or is that somebody we know, we as in the dodgeball community, or who are they exactly?
I don't know if you know more about this, Nick, go ahead, but I know that they did the Elite Nationals last year. I don't know if I believe they're an esports streaming company.
Okay.
But I don't know if they met Mark or whoever they met through Elite, but they kind of reached out, and they've been doing Elite Nationals last year, and they did UDC this year. I think they did last year's UDC, but I don't know. But that's all.
They handled the stream, the live stream of last year's UDC. This year they don't have a deal with ESPN yet, but Mad City was doing the live stream for the first 2 days of UDC last year. They're a Chicago-based company. Vegam is the guy in charge and the guy that's the main contact for him. He's a dodgeball player.
Nice, that's awesome. Do you know if they'll be present for the Elite Nationals coming up?
We are working on that.
Gotcha. Very cool. One thing I wanted to ask too is so the interviews that were taking place. Paige, were you interviewed at all? No, but right, no. You were, Mick?
Yeah, so they just did, I think they did all the captains of all the top 2 women's teams. So I know Ashley was interviewed for your team, Paige. And then just the rest of the captains for all the top 8 and then the top 2 women's. So
how did that work? Did they have like a separate studio set up where they would pull you guys aside to interview? Was it before, after, during, or can you kind of walk me through that?
Yeah, so they had a little area next door to the front entrance of Skyzone. It was a little building next door, and they had a green screen set up for photos. They had so cool. A bunch of lights and chairs and everything set up. So they did all those little player intros where they zoom into each player's face. Right. They did that. Every team scheduled a time with them to come in between Thursday and Friday for that, and then on Saturday, I can't remember the exact time or date, but they, I think once we qualified. Right after we finished on Saturday, they brought us in next door, or they brought me in, and then I sat down with them and had like a maybe 10-15-minute interview, just talking about everything that's going on, the women's division, how we felt about top 8, and they just kind of put it. There was two videos, the women's division, and then they had the co-ed Elite 8 video as well.
Gotcha. Okay, I was wondering how they were. Again, it was just like, wow, they're coming out with content so fast as it's happening. I wonder what the setup looked like, but that's incredible. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Let's kind of go back to before I guess moving up to the UDC. So, and we can start with you, Paige. What was your path to the UDC like? Like you had to do some qualifiers, is that correct? Or was it like, how'd you get to that? How'd you get there? Start there.
No, so for the women's, because it was the first year that did the invitational, so we put together teams, kind of verified the teams through Jake Mason. And he kind of checked off on the teams to make sure that we had enough representation from every region. And then we just kind of showed up. So that's pretty much how we got in. There was no qualifier or anything.
So you guys got to choose who you wanted to play with first and then get it approved by Jake?
So I mean, there was like an Arizona team, kind of mostly like West Coast based teams, and then there were a couple teams that were mashups of like East and West, or like ours was North and West. Canadian team upstairs. So we just had to get it approved, I guess, to have those players on a specific team.
Gotcha. And who was on your team? It was Ashley Cook, Tanya Kaiser,
Tanya, Rolina, and Angelique.
Who is just a freaking monster, apparently. Can't wait to get into that one in a second.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so did you guys have a chance to practice, or like when was the team like official for you guys?
So we actually were talking about getting a team together to enter the men's, just to do that. So nice. We had our team kind of set up, or had it was an idea for a while. We wanted to do that, and then we were going to go find a qualifier that we could all make it to, hopefully take that. So when they announced the women's division, it was kind of like, oh, we already have our team sort of together, and we just decided to switch over to the women's division. That's
convenient. Like you guys already had that team set up. Very cool.
Yeah.
Why Vendetta? Did you guys get to choose your team name and the colors, or how did that fall into place?
Yeah, we bounced around on a lot of names for a long time because we were talking about entering the men's. So we had a lot of different names. None of mine were chosen, but I like Vendetta because it was pretty good. So
can we have some of the names that you threw out there?
You don't want them on the air.
Okay. Fair enough. It's just going to be a series of bleeps. Awesome. Cool. So you guys got the approval. Sounds like you already had a team going already. So by the time it was time to show up, you guys were ready to execute. How about you, Mick? One of the things I wanted to ask, and I forgot who might have answered this for me, but can you just explain To The again?
Okay. To The. So the name is kind of expanded, and where it is now is open to interpretation on what people have given it so many different meanings, and I actually enjoyed it. It literally was just a nickname that was given to me when I was like 15 or 14 by Micah and our other best friend, Brandon. So I've known Micah, who's my co-captain on the team, since I was a kid. And it was just a nickname that he gave me, and we just started playing dodgeball, and it just kind of stuck on the court with us. And then we didn't have any name, so we just were like, all right, let's call it that. But now everybody's kind of given it something different, and I just let people call it whatever they want.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was Alan. I was talking to Alan Thomas from the West. It was To The Championship. I was like, okay, I guess.
That's kind of stuck after this one. And then, so, there's a good guy who plays WeHo Dodgeball. His name's Gordon Bellamy. He was one of the first people to say that to us. He's been very supportive of us as well.
That's so funny. So if people are like, hey, what does To The mean? It's like, well, what does it mean to you? Like, you just like let them...
Some people say when we get out to the outline, that's fine. We'll come back in on a catch and take it to the championship.
That's awesome. Why was it a nickname for you though?
I had, all my like social media and because my name was Mick Wood, and they just put To The in the middle, so it became Mick To The Wood, and it kind of just flew. Like it just rolled off the tongue easily. So then it just stuck with me.
That's awesome. That's how nicknames are. Like you don't choose them most of the time. They're given to you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so what was actually I'm going to assume you're going to keep To The from now on, right? It's no longer a placeholder, or are you going to change your name into something else?
We're all in talks right now, so we don't know what's going to happen over the next year.
Gotcha.
So we'll discuss that and see.
Part of the post UDC championship processing you guys got to go through.
Yeah, some of us do, some of us don't, and if we come up with something better and something great, then, it's all branding. So it's like, if you can make something that sticks, and if people enjoy it, why change it? But if it's something that you think you can do something better and, sell it better, then go ahead,
For sure. You guys have pretty sick jerseys, and I thought for the longest time too, that was like some kind of Japanese thing, maybe, just because I don't know if anybody's going to get this reference, but it reminds me of something I would see from like the early Double Dragon game cartridge covers. And so I was like, is this like an 8-bit playoff of some video game? But again, going back to what happens when you let other people define the name, the mind goes in crazy places. But what was the path to victory like? So you guys had to play in qualifiers, right? Is that how it works? Yeah.
So last year, we played in the Van Nuys qualifier without Travion McCain and Daniel Ariano. And it was just the five of us, Alan, Micah, Anthony, and Xander, and I. And we unfortunately got beaten out, and Team Black and Doom went to the Nationals last year. So kind of growing into the next year, I kind of talked a little more with Daniel and Trey, and I was kind of talking to them about what they're going to do, and they were all iffy about if they're going back with their team or what they're going to do. So I just suggested, come play with us. I think that we had 5 guys that are kind of fresh into this, and people saw our potential, and they had already been to top 8 before. And as a captain, I just thought it was a great choice to kind of bring on 2 a little more experienced people that were kind of our age as well. And I mean, it worked definitely. But going into this year, I actually didn't make it to the qualifier because I was in England at the time. I had to be out of town. But I trusted all of my guys to go, and they played in Torrance, which, in my opinion, was the hardest qualifier in all of the states, most likely. It had Crisis, it had Doom, it had us, it had a couple other teams of just, well-stacked players that had been to the finals already.
Definitely.
But no, it was definitely, I was sitting there on my phone the entire time just watching the stream live on everybody's different streams that was going on.
It's incredible that you can do that. You're in London and you're able to follow along live as it's going down. Would it be fair to say that, and I don't want to piss off any other regions, but is Torrance like the proving ground? Is that one of the harder ones, you think?
I mean, we had 3 out of the 8 teams in the finals, and we only had 3 teams come from the qualifier. So, if we're taking that majority of the top 8, it kind of says something about the competition. To be fair, there are well-qualified teams around the States, and I think that there's a chance if you did put maybe 4 teams in Torrance, that potentially 4 teams would be in the top 8. It's based on bracket play too, but I think that the teams coming out of Torrance are some of the strongest teams that are going to make it to the top 8.
Gotcha. Yeah, it may not be, I won't say that may not be a fair question to pin on you, but I was just curious, just for my own reference. What about you, Nick? Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, where do you see like the tougher regions or the tougher qualifiers? If you can speak to that.
Absolutely, yeah. I was at the Torrance qualifier too, because that was kind of our ref training for most of the officials that were there in Chicago. And who was the 4th place team, Mick? Was it Rise?
Yeah, Rise. They lost to Doom in the 3rd place match.
Yeah, so we had to hold a 3rd place match because there's 3 bids to go to Chicago. And so, potentially, if Rise was here in Chicago last week, they probably would have been in the top 8. Mm-hmm. It was an incredibly tough crowd to get through. Not to knock ABC, but they went to Lee Summit, Missouri. They had to play 3 other teams, and they were fighting for 2 bids. So that's just that's probably going to be one of the easiest qualifiers to go through. Mm-hmm. But no knock to ABC, they're still a good team. But that's the kind of disparity you'll see across the states with this tournament.
Right, they're not as saturated with experienced players as the West is already known for. I do want to get back to the path to victory, though. So you guys, you got to play with. Well, let me slow down. You rejoined them after the qualifiers. Did you have any trouble syncing back with your team, Mick, or was it just business as usual?
No, it was just business as usual. I got back. I took about a month off because I was overseas traveling. But they had been practicing still while I was out of town. I was still in communication, still setting up practices with other teams. But when I got back, we just jumped right back into it and had no problems. Very
cool. I did want to mention when I covered the Tribune. Was it like the Tribune tournament that Tyler threw on back in December? He had mentioned that was the first time I heard and I think he specifically stated to watch out for you guys because you guys were solid coming off the trampoline and going into foam and noasting and whatnot. So I think it's cool that I just went full circle. Like now I'm actually talking to the champion of UDC for trampoline. So it's a really cool thing to realize come into motion or fruition rather. But and for you, Nick, one of the things I wanted to ask before I asked, like, how did you prepare for UDC is like, what's your involvement with that? Andrew, when I interviewed him, he kind of mentioned that you might have been responsible for getting him involved into dodgeball because you worked there, or how'd that all start out?
Well, I worked for another trampoline park company called Sky High Sports, and I opened the one in Costa Mesa in Orange County, and that's where Andrew Ketchum started playing. And so eventually when he wanted to play in the UDC, I brought him onto my team, and we pretty much combined the two teams that we had for UDC, called it German Meat, and we qualified out of I don't even remember, but yeah, we took a team to the top 8 in 2015. We did a really solid performance in 2016 and lost out on Saturday to the Ducks. Yeah, and then he went off and joined the Shootas, and he became this dodgeball powerhouse that everyone sees now. So that's how I started with UDC.
Gotcha. And how long have you been reffing for them again?
This was my second year.
Second year.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to do that? Why ref instead of play?
When you lose a player like Andrew Ketchum, it's kind of hard to start another team. And it's funny because, fun fact, I tried to grab Trey and Daniel to play with me this year. And then they said, I think we're going to go with Titha. I said, that's probably a better way to go. And look where it got them now. So you're welcome, Mick.
So
thank you.
Pretty much we have Nick to thank for Andrew Ketchum and for Titha winning the championship.
I'll give him his credit.
Pretty good contributions to the sport, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. Kind of want to go into this next question. Is how do you guys prepare and stay fit for UDC? And Nick, I'll start with you because I guess we're kind of on the subject already. Do you have to do anything special to ref? Like, do you have to take a test, or do you know the rules by heart, or do you have to do anything differently to prepare for this role?
We did have a lot of input in the rules this year, and we wanted to make sure that it was pretty much clear and fair for everybody. We did change a couple of things. I mean, the invalid throw rule, the yellow cards and red cards came into effect. I feel like it changed the attitude of a lot of the players coming in. We only issued out one yellow card throughout the entire weekend, but having those at our disposal is, I feel like, gave the teams their, warning. This is a professional sport. You can't mess around. And the officials that we brought on that were assistant officials, they had to take a test, I believe, that Jake Mason put out there for them to do, and we wanted to make sure that everyone was serious about it.
What's an invalid throw? Just tossing a ball away? Can't do that anymore?
So this is not only just a tournament, it is a TV show, so you're creating live TV that you want to have entertain people. And so if there's 30 seconds left on the clock and a team has to throw a ball, you don't want them throwing to a trampoline two trampolines away from one player if they have a huge lead. You want them to try to get the guy out.
Right.
So if they throw a ball away, it's not exciting TV, unfortunately. And so we wanted to make sure that we're putting on a product that's really that stands out, that's really grabs your attention. So that we had to put that rule into play, and actually it came into effect a couple of times throughout the tournament. Actually put TC Bush out of the top 8.
Oh, wow. So what happens if you throw a ball away?
If you throw a ball away, it is an instant out.
Dang. Even if it slips, or?
It's up to the ref's discretion.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, if you could tell if they're intentionally throwing a ball away from a player because they don't want them to catch it and they don't want to give them all balls. You could see it, and yeah, unfortunately, it happened to TC Bush.
That's a bummer, but that's cool that it's keeping TV in mind. And as Paige said, with like 6 refs on the court, I think you can kind of trust that they're going to make the right call if need be. And one thing you did mention, somebody got a yellow card. Was that Paige?
It was not Paige.
Just kidding.
It was actually a guy in Swolgers during the during their game against Dynasty in the quarterfinals of top 8. They were just taunting, and they were flirting with it throughout the entire tournament, and then it just crossed the line. And so Joe, one of the other head officials, wanted to go ahead and issue the yellow card, and they all understood. They did not fight back on that at all. And funny story, the guy that earned the yellow card, his mom called him. She was watching the stream. His mom called.
Yes.
And said, "What are you doing? Don't act like that."
Oh man, that's awesome.
They got it back together, and they were fine the rest of the day.
That's incredible. Oh man, that is awesome on so many different levels. Well, good. I'm glad. Nothing against these guys, but I'm glad that they were made an example of, and it actually, it stopped. We definitely want professionals on both sides, from the production to the athletes, and we don't want tantrums and meltdowns that we're, I don't want to say used to seeing, but we've known to experience during these tournaments. That's hysterical. His mom called him though. I can't get over that. Well, how about you, Paige? How did you stay fit for UDC? Like, did you practice more on the trampoline? Is there different conditioning you had to do? Like, how did you guys make sure you guys were in top shape?
Well, personally, this was like my second time being on the trampoline ever, so I just kind of did like my normal stuff, Krav Maga and all that dodgeball related activity. But I think Ashley and Tanya actually get to practice on trampolines a lot. They have a lot of access to that, so it was really good that they did. And then I also think Angelique and Rolina have practiced a couple times on trampolines, so I was with a couple of veterans. It was really nice.
Gotcha.
Really nice.
Yeah, I mean, if they're this is just an assumption. I don't know if you guys can correct me on this if you know, but I mean, if they're able to practice with like Brody and all them, and Ryan, and basically they do some crisis, then I'm pretty sure they're gonna be in solid shape for UDC.
Yeah, they were for sure.
All monsters. And Mick, how about you? I mean, you guys are no strangers to trampoline, so did you guys do anything different to prepare for the weekend?
Not really. I think just practicing, we had, practicing every week on tramps is usually what we do. And then other than that, we do a lot of rec leagues, like WeHo Dodgeball, and then, Elite has open gyms sometimes. So we kind of, we play different ball types as well. We just play dodgeball, and a lot of my, I play a lot of the mental game with people, and I try and make sure everybody's on the same page and not just like trying to whip balls as hard as they can and trying to make sure people are coordinated on the court. So I think playing a lot with different people and playing, and there's a Sunday League of Foam that we play, but it's with a lot of the people that are going to Chicago, and a lot of people that have been there. So I think that was a big help for us. So that's kind of what we did, is just play with all the different types of people.
Gotcha. This might be a weird question. This might be for both you, Mick, or Nick. Is there a lot of like random like flips and weird off the wall like Spider-Man acrobatic plays that take place once you get to this level of competition on trampoline, or do people stay on the ground mostly or primarily that you guys have noticed? So I mean, Nick has been to the other location, and I believe it was in Vegas. I think the switch to fusion courts has eliminated a lot of that. I think the fusion courts were, this is my first time on fusion courts, and I liked them and I enjoyed them, but they remind me a lot of just regular floor. There's bounce to them and there's movement, but and every other, the qualifier where we played, and there's a lot of teams that play on the regular traditional trampolines. You have a lot more bounce, and especially from the thing that I've noticed the most from like just the videos, and even last year that I didn't play in 2015 and 14, Skyzone released the top 10 best catches or top 10 best dodges, and you watch those on the old trampolines, with the blue pads in the middle, and there are people just doing, people like from Awesome, the Giovincos are just flipping off walls or front flipping. The Kill the Comp guys are incredibly talented on those trampolines. They can backflip off walls at the same time as blocking and dodging and stuff, but I think that the fusion courts definitely eliminated a lot of that especially in final plays and everything like that. It's more of just a traditional style of dodgeball with the occasional, it's a lot of just bouncing off the back wall and then maybe a slight fall and dodge, but that's about
the most I saw this weekend.
Nothing insane. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Giovincos, because that's who I was picturing when I was saying, doing corkscrew, double axle, barrel roll nonsense, like that kind of stuff. Nick, do you have anything to contribute to that you've seen?
Well, one of the major teams last year, the Shootas, they're not back, and one of the major reasons why is because half that team is really good on the old trampolines. Christian, who last year, I want to say he told somebody that these trampolines aren't good for our style of play, and I can agree with that. And him, Mikey, and all of them are really good at dodging by bouncing up on the trampolines and bouncing off the walls on the trampolines. And the fusion courts just don't allow for that. So, like Mick said, it is a lot more geared towards the floor dodgeball player.
Interesting.
And I did notice this weekend, I did notice people trying to do certain plays like they were on old pads. And I remember watching one of the awesome games and watching the Giovincos trying to fall and do a couple little things. And in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, it'd be great if that worked. But, I partly felt like that doesn't work on the fusions as much as it did on the old ones. You don't have as much bounce. You don't have as much movement, from my personal opinion, playing on it. And part of me was like, just play your game. It's almost like we're switching to a more traditional style and less of acrobatic movements and trying to be sneaky with little things. They work occasionally, but that's what I took out of this weekend, playing and seeing all the other teams.
So that's a difference we completely didn't cover, and that was the adoption of fusion courts. So can you explain what those are?
A fusion court is just, I don't know what exactly they are. Nick, you can chime in if you want. I just know the difference between them is it's just more of one single trampoline that's kind of stitched together rather than 9 individual trampolines with pads separating them in the middle. And the big thing that I got the difference between that is that you have less bounce on the fusion courts than you do on the traditional Skyzone trampolines.
Gotcha. Okay. And then Paige, did that impact your team at all, or did that impact you? Did you even notice?
The fusion courts?
Yeah.
It was I didn't have a lot of reference to go off of, but right. I think for the most part, the women's teams play less uncontrolled. That's not the right word to use, but there's a lot less flipping and a lot less diving into walls. So for us, it was more like we had the ability to drop under a ball or to fall on our backs and hop back, right back up and catch a ball. So I don't think it's as big of an asset to have those regular bouncy trampolines. So I think the fusion courts were just fine.
Gotcha. It wasn't impacting your style of play.
It enhanced it, I think, to an extent.
Nice.
Throwing's obviously more difficult on a bouncy ground, but I don't know. I think a lot more people were more comfortable just dropping to catch balls and stuff. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. For sure. Cool. Well, let's kind of go into day one, I guess, for lack of better words. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, Nick, if you can recall, was how many teams were there total for each division?
There were 27 open teams and 8 total women's division teams.
And did all these teams get to play each other round robin, or were they in pools, or what was the format like?
They had 3 different travel pools, and you played 6 total round robin games. Is that right, Mick? And then you're guaranteed 1 match in the bracket going into on day 3.
So 3 travel pools. That's like West region, or how was that divvied up?
So the pools, the way they worked is if you were in Group A, you got to the park first and you played out 3 or 4 of your games, and then you went back to the hotel. And then they bring in Group B, do the same thing, and then Group C. And so, Thursdays typically are our longest day in UDC because we're churning through all these teams and getting all these games going. But that's how the format was for day one.
So you said Thursday. How many days is it?
It's 4 days total. The women do the days 2 through 4, and the open division is across all 4 days.
Gotcha. Okay, so day one's the 3 travel pools. No one's going home at that point, right?
Correct.
Okay.
The only time a team is eliminated is after Saturday. Everyone knows where they are.
Crazy. It's interesting that they bring them in like pools, and then you're just done for the day.
There are only 2 courts at Orland Park.
Okay.
It's just going to take a long time to get through 27 teams across 2 courts.
Gotcha.
That's the reason for the travel pools.
And these travel pools, like, are you only playing against teams in your region, or is it like mixed? Like, are you going to get a chance to play against teams you've never played before?
Mick, can you answer some of that?
So the travel pools, I don't know how exactly they were based. I think that your standing in the previous year, if you were top 8, might have had an influence in it, and I think it was also randomized. I know if you qualified from the same place, like Doom, Crisis, and us, we were not put in the same pool. I think they separated teams that were in the same qualifier. Like I know Lee Summit had 2 people go, and other people had 2 teams go. So they split it that way. But no, we played people we've never played before, and it was all mixed. Everybody played different teams from different regions.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It's like you guys have this intense battle, against teams that you know and play against all the time. Then you go to Chicago and you play against them. You're like, oh, cool. We traveled all the way out here to play the same guys. So it's good to see that there's some variety there.
Mm-hmm.
Paige, from what you can recall, what was it like for you guys? Same thing, like travel pools, or did you guys all get to play against each other, or how'd that work out?
We had the 8 teams, so we just did a full round robin. So we got to play everyone.
Nice.
So it was awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Before we get into like the actual teams, Nick, what was the total cash prize per division? So 65,000 total purse, right?
Yes, 65,000 total. So for the women's, it was 15,000. 10,000 goes to the winner, 5,000 goes to second place. And then for the open division, 20,000 goes to the winner, 10,000 goes to second place. And then they split it up. Third and fourth get a certain amount, and then 4 through 8 get the lesser part of the total prize.
Man, that's incredible. Getting paid to play dodgeball, that's amazing. I'm gonna ask you guys what you're gonna do with your money later, but don't let me forget to ask that question. So that's cool. What was the game format? Was it like best 2 out of 3, timed?
So the format for round robin is best 2 out of 3 3-minute games, and it's 5-on-5 with 5 balls.
Is there like a burden ball or not shot clock, like throw clock, or?
There is a burden clock, and we start with a ball in the middle and 2 balls in hand for the teams. So it's kind of a strategic start to begin with. And the team with the highest amount of players at the end of 3 minutes or eliminates the entire team gets the point.
I see.
And then for elimination day, Saturday and Sunday, it's best 3 out of 5.
Very cool.
And if it's tied after 3 minutes, then it goes to a no blocking sudden death.
Oh man.
The first out loses.
No blocking too. That sucks. I hate that. I hate to do it, but I love watching. It's so funny when people just after the fact like, oh crap, I can't block him out. Such a great thing to see. Well, very cool. I did kind of have this breakdown down, like what team did you notice per day 1, per day 2, but since there's so much dodgeball going on, and I'll start with you, Paige, since you got to play all of them. What teams did you notice were just like on fire or super good, just that you can recall that stood out from your perspective?
The top 4 teams really, really stood out to me, and especially Loft and, well, all of them. Loft, Air to the Throne, or is it Air? I don't know. I kept thinking there was a rumor going around that Air and To The were like combined. So, Mick, I don't know if you can comment on that. So I keep saying Air to the Throne. I don't know if it's Air to the Throne.
It's what
Air,
it was, yeah.
Mood and Loft were all just really, really stacked teams. They all worked so well together, and it was, especially playing against Loft, like they took us to 0-2 right away, and we ended up coming back in the semis. But it, like, every single player on all of those teams is a threat. So it was good, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking at the part 1 of the Tribune recap, and not to dismiss any of these players, but like names that are popping up are, Crystal Briones, Ashley Cook. I can't pronounce her last name, but Karina Amezcua. Sorry. Tiffany Pageant, but people like I would read about or hear about in any event.
Yeah.
I just think that the craziest thing that I can recall is just that was it 4v1 on Angelique.
Yeah.
What was that like?
What was it like? Well,
just watching that happen and unfold.
Everyone knows who Angelique is, and everyone expects her to like, make some amazing catches. So it just made it so much sweeter when all 4 of those outs were kills.
Right.
And, especially for her, like, that's how we're going to win UDC is this 4v1 play, and she's going to come out on top. So it was exhilarating. It was great.
So I was obviously really late to watching that clip, but I'd already seen in Facebook threads all over the place, like, Angelique's a monster, she's a legend of League, just people flipping out over whatever she did. And I was like, it sounds like she must not have done I can't talk. She must not have just got one catch. Like, it wasn't a clutch. She must have done something phenomenal. And so I'm watching, I finally get to see the clip like a couple days ago, and it's 4v1. I'm like, she's not catching anything. She's just taking them all out with her hand. Holy like, it was just incredible watching that.
Yeah.
What game was that, or what would have happened if she lost?
We were up 2-1 at that point. So if we lost, it would have gone to 2-2, and then that last game would have been the deciding point. So, okay. She won that match, and we ended up winning 3-1.
So she just did you guys a solid, said, hey, you know what, we're not even going to get into that crazy, suspenseful last game. I'm just going to take care of it now. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry, guys. I got this. Yeah. So.
Oh, man, that's awesome. That's cool. Just looking at the stats here. I was trying to see like where she might have placed, but I don't see her in the top 20. Looks like she got 27. Oh man! So half her kills for the entire game.
Or in the very last game
was when she needed it the most. That's awesome. Do you, Mick, Nick? Did you guys? Well, Nick, I think once you saw it, but did you guys have any commentary on what you saw with that?
Well, yeah, I was reffing that game, and as she was going through mood, we didn't even realize that this was the game to decide it, because it was so surprising. We're like, okay, we're going to wait here. We're going to make sure she gets a catch when it comes in. Oh, wait, she just took out Karina. Okay, well, it's going to be 3-on-1. Let's see if she pulls in a double catch. Oh, wow, she just hit out 1, 2, and then 3. Kate was the last blocker, and it was just stunning to watch.
Yeah,
we were all speechless.
Again, it's just like she's almost been typecast. Like, we just expect a catch, and so that's what I was doing. Like, okay, here's gonna be a double catch, okay, a triple. Like, when is she gonna catch something that's gonna make people lose their mind? And then, no, she's showing that she's got an arm too, and that was awesome. Did you get to watch that, Mick? Did you get to see it?
Oh yeah, I was right there on the sideline watching it. It was funny too, because after day 2, I had almost already lost my voice from just screaming in the first 6 of our round robin games. And the second that happened, I just remember screaming, and just somehow my voice came back for a minute, and then it was gone again afterwards. But it was an amazing play to watch live.
God, it must have been so cool to see live. Just the energy and the people just losing their minds. That's so cool. I'm going back to the stats. It looks like Paige, you led the division in catches.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I was just trying to see like who else is on here. So we got Lauren Hoffman from Lofts, Tiffany Pageant. Is it Azalea Donch? How do you say your name? Azalea. Donche.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nina Fiore, Samantha Greco. That's like I said, just I wouldn't expect not to see these individuals on here. Any other plays or teams that maybe Nick, you might have noticed, or Mick, or actually, were you guys able to watch the women's division? Like, it wasn't happening concurrently, right? You said due to the setup, it was open and then women's.
Yeah, women's was the round robin was Friday morning. They started early, I believe. Their first game was 9:00 in the morning, and then the open started again back up. I think at like 11:30 was the first game. So I know a lot of us. I came out. A lot of my team came out. Right at 8:30, 9:00 just to watch all the round robin games. So we watched them all.
Nice. So what did you see in terms of like teams that might have stood out or players just overall?
I mean, definitely I was watching Air a lot, because that has Crystal and Amy, the two of the girls that started with us at Skyzone, 3-4 years ago. They had a lot of great plays, and I was helping, support them. I was taking stats for them for most of their games. Outside of that, I know Fierce had a good leg on some of their games. They had some strong arms, Emmy and Kat were definitely holding down corners pretty well. But, for the most part, I spent a lot of my time just watching Air just to kind of support them and make sure that they got as far as they could.
Awesome. And how about you, Nick? What did you witness with that division, just overall?
I mean, overall, the division itself, they're incredible players, but they're also very strategic. And a lot of these games went to 3 minutes, as opposed to the open division where all the guys are just bang, 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 bang. Let's get rid of the other guys as quick as we can. The women's team were just trading blows left and right, but they were very strategic. It was more of a chess match. And so we did get behind schedule about, 20, 30 minutes. But all these women were killing it out there. And the Wildlings were also a really good team to watch. Savannah Burton was killing people left and right. If you look at those stats, you could see who's really up there. I mean, Rolina and Ashley, of course. They were just they were killing it. I enjoyed watching them as much as I enjoyed reffing.
I'm just checking out the stats here, and there's some names I don't recognize. I wonder if they're just like strictly trampoline or if they're in different regions, but pretty much like the same. Actually, I see Savannah Burton you mentioned from Wildlings, 21 kills. Good lord. Does she play Elite? Do you know? Do you guys know by chance?
No, she's from Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. The Canada and the Wildlings.
Sense,
That's awesome. Very cool. Let me see if I have any other questions for. It looks like, I think it was released today, but the Tribune released part 1 of the women's recap, and it looks like it's pretty thorough, but just echoes a lot of what we kind of talked about already. Were there any other like crazy breakout plays that you guys can recall that would even come close to comparing to what Angelique's game finisher did?
Yeah. So in the game, Mood versus Heir to the Throne, so they got down to the 2-2, and Brianna was how many people were against Brianna?
Was it the catch that she made?
Yeah, it was 3-1, right?
It was 3-3. It was sudden death. It was a 3-3 sudden death,
nice.
And they had gotten all balls.
Yes. So
you can finish from there.
No. Help me. I'm too excited right now.
That was a very insane play, especially watching that live and how everything just stopped.
It was 3-3 sudden death. Mood has Brianna London, Kate, and
Karina? Was it Karina?
No.
I don't think it was Karina.
But then
I think it was Azalea.
And Azalea, that's correct.
Yeah.
Justine Moncur, is this what this is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Justine, Tiffany, and Nina were in for Heir to the Throne. So it's sudden death. So you start it like you start a regular game. 2 balls in hand, 1 ball in the middle. Mood throws 2 of their balls at Tiffany. They miss. And so ends up with Heir having all 5 balls in sudden death. They decide to throw at Brianna. And the 2 Portland ladies miss high on Brianna. And then Justine follows up with another throw, and Brianna gobbles it up and brings it down.
Which I found it interesting that they decided to throw at Brianna because she's one of the most like notorious catchers in dodgeball in every single ball type. So I found that interesting.
I think their position on the court, I think because a lot of the balls were on the left side, I think they just somehow I remember Nina and Justine were on the left side, and I think they were just already set on throwing.
Okay.
And I know Tiffany came from the right side. It would have been a different game if they had chosen someone else, I think.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Interesting.
So 5v1, sudden death. You just need to make one out. You got to catch one ball. Don't make the mistake. And she did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to read this real quick. So the momentum had shifted back to Heir to the Throne side. And Mood made another mistake by giving up all their balls. Heir zeroed in on London. And as you guys were saying, like, the first multi-throw was off target. And then it looks like she jumped up and gobbled it. So was she like crouched and just popped up and grabbed it, or I gotta watch this, like figure out how it went down. But do you remember?
Yeah. So they threw one. I can't remember if she dodged low for it, but I know they threw high, so it put her at a low position, and she came straight up, and Justine's ball came first. And it was, I don't know if they didn't communicate or something happened, but her ball came first and went straight into her pocket when she jumped up into it.
Oh, man.
And then it was followed by 2 additional throws, but they weren't successful in time.
And it didn't matter at that point.
Mm-hmm.
God, that sucks for Justine. That's awesome for Brianna. And it's probably so cool to watch. Man, sudden death. That's incredible. Talk about pressure. I think this is a picture of her. If I'm referencing the Tribune article again, just like there's a picture of her just like looking just completely, she's gonna rip that ball in half.
Yep.
Out of excitement.
And I'm pretty sure it was 2v2 in that moment as well. I think that was a final closer to say who goes to the next day.
Yeah, that was the play that ended it.
That was game 5.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody, the catch was made, and everybody just went crazy on everything that happened right there.
God, it's awesome. I can almost pick up on the excitement just post-fact. I gotta go next time, if anything, just to watch. That's so cool. Any other huge plays that either of you guys can remember from the women's division that might have come close to those two?
No, not close. Not close to those two.
Just like, hey, that was cool, but
plays, but nothing even compares with those two.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, the good thing is, like, we can all watch this on replays and on ESPN and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and move into Open. It's probably gonna be a little bit more difficult to recap, but starting with you, Mick. Any teams or players that stood out that you can recall just from your perspective?
Teams that we played stood out. I think one of this is closer towards our top 8 matches. We kind of talked to these guys a little bit after the game too, and they were really cool with us. We played the Kill the Comp guys. They were a little bit of a difficult team to kind of manage and kind of understand what they were doing on the court, because they're all young and they're reckless. So they definitely gave up balls a lot, but I think that almost threw off our play strategy a bit, when they're coming at us so fast and putting us in a weird position. Those guys were all maneuverable on the courts. They all understood how to play on trampolines, and I think they were similar to us because we grew up on trampolines, and they primarily only play trampolines.
Wow.
So I think that was definitely a team that stood out to me playing against them. But everybody else, besides Doom, I don't think we had ever played any of the other teams going in. I know Trey and Daniel had. I know going into our Toon Squad game, we were definitely trying to figure out how their play style was, because I had never played against them before. But for the most part, it was kind of all new, seeing how everybody played a totally different game style.
Very cool. Let me just look at these stats real quick, because I wanted to mention someone who I was not expecting to get blown up on Facebook was Daniel Arellano.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
he's a monster.
Is he the minor league pitcher?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna eat my words just yet, but I made the comment to Alan where when I first saw him throwing, I saw a lot of potential, but he was throwing and this is for 8.5. This is like he was throwing wild and high. And I just made the comment like, oh, okay, there's nothing to worry about here. And then during round 3, it seemed like he was starting to aim, and I was like, okay, that's not cool. And I think you can hear that in the recap. But so I was not expecting, not to take away anything from him, but I was not expecting him to be a big no-sting player. Has that always been the case? Like, am I just not not following correctly, or where did he come from?
He's actually he started out at Sky High Sports. So when I worked for Sky High, I opened the location in Ontario, California, and that's like in the Inland Empire. So we got a lot of kids from Corona and Riverside that come up and play. And Daniel, I think that's where he's from, Corona or something like that. But I don't know where he lives now, but he's was playing that, and I brought no sting balls in to Sky High Sports to have them play with the dodgeball with, and they got used to it. And I think that's what he started playing with. But aside from the foam balls and the cloth balls that we played with at Sky High, when I brought the no sting balls in, that's their first time they actually played with them. But this was like, years ago,
right?
In 2012. So he's been playing for a while.
Okay.
And yeah.
So 8.5 elite, like that's more of a new thing for him. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, that's fair to say.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So it's gonna go to you, Mick. So what happened? Like, what did he do that was just so phenomenal? Was he just like on fire that day, or was this like normal Daniel? Or can you kind of break that down a little bit?
I mean, I spent a lot of time watching a lot of Team Black videos and seeing how they played before and their chemistry on court, and like, a lot of when I come onto a court and I try and get a team to go, and all us communicate, it's all about our communication. And I felt like there were certain things that they needed to work on, certain things we all needed to work on as players. And I think definitely practicing over the last year with them has increased all of our game and all of us to work together and communicate. And I think that day specifically, something triggered in his brain and he just went off. And like, I've seen him go off before and I've seen him play in practices, but when he's in tournament mode, it's something completely different, and it's something that even in games where I was just playing with him, we played, what was the team? I can't remember the team. We played a game it was our final round robin game. I can't remember the name, but we played them on Friday, and basically I remember he just hit one, a ball comes back, I give it back to him, hits two, and I just yelled at everybody. I was like, stop, and I just said, Daniel, go. And he just took out all four guys back to back, and I was just like, game over. All right, let's get off.
Was it Toon Squad?
No, it wasn't Toon Squad. It was our last game on
British Bulldogs?
No, British Bulldogs. It could have been Soldiers. No, it wasn't Soldiers. They had the blue jerseys.
Oh,
I can't remember the name. I'd have to look it up and remember it off of our bracket. But it was our last game on. No, not Metahumans. They weren't in our pool. I'll think of it later and figure it out. But we played that game, and that was definitely it was our last round robin game, and that was the game for me to kind of see what was going into the rest of the weekend for Saturday and Sunday, because that pooled us where I knew we only had one game on Saturday because the top 5 teams only had to play one game Saturday, and then everybody else had to play 2 to go into top 8. And I just was like, I just knew that he wasn't going to change. That whole weekend was just going to go smoothly for him.
He was just on.
Yeah.
Good of you to recognize that, because sometimes like a player will, I won't say they'll break discipline, but they'll just go on this crazy kill streak, and sometimes you just got to let them run with that. You just got to go with the hot hand and just let them unload. I gotta go back and watch a lot of these games and just find out.
I mean, I made a little highlight reel of our team too, so if you get a chance to watch that, you'll see Daniel just has back to back to back. And the good thing about him is, you see players that get a hot streak and their mental game gets too heated, and they start to push it too much. With him, it's just like he's extremely calm and he understands what's going on, and that's how I knew that everything was smooth for the rest of the weekend, just because he wasn't going off the rails. He was just hitting, and then boom, it was over.
That's awesome. So it was controlled chaos, kind of, or maybe not chaos, but I wonder if his baseball background has anything to do with that.
I think so, yeah.
I'll have to pick his brain one of these days. What was it like playing against Crisis? And I mentioned that because that was I was expecting, no offense, the finals to be Doom against Crisis. So do you remember watching them play?
Well, it's funny. Our teammate Alan. I remember we were talking months ago, and we're just joking about the top 8. And the first thing he said Doom Crisis in the finals, and we all just stopped and we're like, okay. Cool.
Noted.
And then he went, "Oh wait, I forgot," because he didn't. We didn't understand that we were actually going to Chicago and actually going to make it. So it's funny that definitely Doom Crisis final was in the back of our mind, but I think a big help to us was our pool. I think our travel pool was helpful for us and who we played in the bracket and how everything played out, because our seating, we would have had a completely different Saturday and Sunday if we had won the coin toss, because we basically tied for first place with Crisis, and they ended up winning the coin toss, which put them in the left bracket to play Brick Squad, to play Doom.
Oh, I see.
It was Doom, Brick Squad, and Crisis on the left side of the bracket, and our right side was Awesome, which had a very unfortunate. They lost their game to Dynasty. Yeah. So that was the big team we were looking, between Dynasty and Awesome. We were definitely worried about that in our bracket. But watching Crisis play, I talked to Andrew Ketchum a lot, and I talked to all those guys and Brody, and they're all really good friends of mine. And I think some of their abilities didn't shine as well as they thought it would on the court. I think they let themselves make some dumb mistakes that cost them ultimately in the end, and I think that's something that they, as smart players, will watch their videos back and understand where they made mistakes, and I think that can only make them better for next year. Gotcha.
Going back real quick, you said unfortunately Team Awesome lost. Can you explain what happened there?
Yeah, it was Dynasty versus Awesome, and I remember I was on the side with Awesome. I think it went to a 2-2. I'm pretty sure it was the final 5th game. And it was 4-on-4 or 4-on-3. I don't remember the exact. But I know when it came down to the wire where they were going to go either into sudden death or take the win, a ball went off the court and the ball got rolled in. And I think it was it Matt or Drew? Drew. Drew on the right side was reaching for the ball, which was on the middle pad, but he looked up because someone pump faked him, and when he reached and looked down, the ball was on the opposite side, and he had crossed the line, which eliminated his player. And that just threw everybody's mental off, because I think that Dynasty still had 4, so they had to take out one person to go to sudden death with like 20 seconds left on the clock. And Dynasty just took well advantage of that, and they just sniped out Zielinski. They sniped out, they have Matt Giovinco. And there was one person left on Awesome, and it was just time, and they won.
That's a bummer.
I think that was a very unfortunate game to see how to lose that way.
Yeah, I'll say. All right, so when Crisis got eliminated, so you guys basically had to face Doom. That was like let me back up. I'm trying to think real quick. So I want to say like was it a relief that you guys didn't have to play Crisis? I don't want to stay on them too much, but
So yeah, we're really good friends with them, and we were either excited to, because we had beat Doom 3-0 in the qualifier, so we confidently knew that we could take them again.
Right.
That was definitely a good for us. And going against Crisis in the finals was definitely going to be a much more challenging play for us. I think being friends with those guys is definitely, it's hard for us to kind of, you got to eliminate everything off the court. You just got to play as hard as you can. And being such close friends with them, I think would affect some of our mental game, especially, myself and Xander. Xander and Ketchum are really good friends. So it was I was devastated to see them leave so quickly, but I was also very glad that it meant that we didn't have to play them in the finals.
It took like a mental pressure off you guys a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. It almost secured our spot into the top 2. That's how I felt after them going, and didn't want to jinx it at the front, but giving us like a 65% chance of taking the whole thing. That's where I was feeling at that point.
Gotcha. What's it like being the team that took out Doom? I mean, they were fixing on their 6th championship. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah.
So what's it
like?
They
won. I think a lot of the West Coast players, there's a lot of support for them and a lot of support for us now, because coming into this all last year, nobody really knew who we were until the Tribune tournament was a big turning for us, especially for people to try and get to know us, and I think practicing every week and just learning how they play, definitely helped us. Um, and I think for me, going into the finals and eliminating them and taking the championship, that was kind of our goal from the get-go, is just to show that, you know, you can dethrone people. You can be a team that just starts and works as hard as they can to get to somewhere and take out the best of the best, you know. That's why we're still almost, you know, not fully there to understanding that we beat them, because it is a hard concept to understand. You know, a team that wins 6 times wins for a reason, you know, or they won 5 times. They won for a reason because they were talented at what they did. And I think that we just took advantage of being young and understanding the sport and trying to play our hardest, and we worked for it. And I think that was a big accomplishment for us, and it hopefully meant a lot to everybody else to understand that other teams can take the whole championship.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about like Doom's dynasty, and they're just dominating everything. And I don't want to say like it's a domino effect, but who knows? Maybe this could be that little spark that some teams might need to get past that mental barrier of like, oh crap, we're playing against Doom, we're going to lose. I'm sure some teams might have that feeling or mentality, but that's an incredible feat. Nick,
we used to have that mentality when we did the Van Nuys qualifiers. We used to think that all the time, and now we don't think that anymore.
What did that change after the tournament, or did you just, like you said, you kind of just decided you're going to play dodgeball and see how it goes?
That mentality, that change, I think it changed. It changed. It kind of slowly dwindled away over the last year. You know, after playing elite with these guys and playing all these different little tournaments here and there, seeing what we're capable of and what everybody's, you know, from when we first started, I met Tony and Micah and Alan on the courts at Skyzone. You know, I think from those guys to where they are now is 100 times different. You know, their play style, their mental ability on the court, understanding how to control balls, you know, and Brittany said it well on the stream too, you know. We played a lot with Glenn this year in Elite, and it's definitely taught us to kind of be more coordinated and be calmer on the court and understand. And I think that I don't think there was one day that just got that away from us. I think that was just kind of over time we all got rid of that fear.
Very cool. Well, Paige, did you have a chance to watch any of the Open division?
Any of the Open?
Right. Or co-ed?
Yeah, I watched what I could, for sure. It's fun to see your friends play.
Any teams or players that stood out from your memory that you can speak to, just overall?
Well, we already talked about it, but Daniel on Tuda just I've seen him play foam before, and he's played really, I think it was foam. Could be wrong. But he was very good. He's very, very, like, not someone you would expect to be able to take out loads of people in one game, but he really impressed me. I was blown away by him. So it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it sounds like he really stole the show, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Nick? What did you see?
I mean, yeah, ditto with Daniel. He's amazing. I played with him on a 2v2 for USA Dodgeball charity tournament. We actually were the last seed going into single elimination rounds, and then we just proceeded to he did go through the bracket and just tear through everybody, and we ended up winning that. So he's a really good player, and I'm looking at the stats. I mean, Ryan with Inferno, Ryan McLaughlin, he's an Australian player. He deserves some big ups because he came all the way up from Australia.
Wow. To
play with a Canadian team, Mark Zizrafi's Canadian team, and they were doing pretty good throughout the round robin. I felt they were playing well. Ryan's got, like, at the end of all the complete stats, he's second in catches, tied for second, and a couple of other players. Kyle Sander from what team was he on?
Metahumans.
Oh yeah, Metahumans. He he did really well playing against a round robin game against Doom. He's another player that stood out. Who else is there? Oh, Sean Wheeler from Brick Squad. He led that team really well. They played Crisis exactly how they wanted to and broke them down, and ended up winning their top 8. They were the 8th seed going into top 8, and they actually took down Crisis, the number 1 seed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it was all strategy on their part. And Sean's leadership was a really big part of that.
Sean had some great counters in that game. I definitely he played a big role in that game.
Sean Wheeler, is he from? Where's he from? Anybody know?
He's from Georgia.
Georgia.
Atlanta. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Huh.
He plays Brick Squad on the East Coast.
Okay. Very cool. I'm looking at the co-ed round robin team stats, and Doom's on top, Aftershock, Crisis, Kill the Comp, ABC. ABC, you said that was that team from Missouri?
Yeah, they're a team based out of LA, but they fly out to Lee Summit, Missouri to get the bid. They did that last year. They did it again this year.
Yeah, I know Nate Evans from that team, so that's one person because he's from Arizona. I think he led one stat in catching. I don't know if that was round robin. Let's try to see if I can pull which day that was. And then moving to overall stats, I just had it.
Oh, one more thing. Billy Schmidt on Goon Squad. They had 4 players.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty much Billy and 3 other guys. And yeah.
They were the only team. They were the only team to take a game off us in round robin.
Wow.
Yeah, and they had 4 players.
That sucks. I wonder what happened to their 5th player. But does Billy adopt to the trampoline well? Is it like watching a giraffe play dodgeball on a trampoline, or is he pretty like what's? Do you guys know what that's like?
He seemed fine on the fusion courts. I mean, and he didn't seem like he had that much of a problem.
Just regular Billy.
Just look at his kills. He's tied for first.
Yeah. He played really well.
Round robin.
I think with a 5th strong person on that team, they could have gone a lot farther.
Might have been like the edge they might have needed.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Total kills. Yeah, he took 7th overall, I think, in total kills. That seems about right.
Crazy.
I don't think I had too much. Aside from Daniel, was there anybody else that might have, I don't want to say stole the show, that sounds so cliche, but any other like crazy plays to look out for highlights, or that any of you guys might have picked up on?
I don't remember anything that stood out. I got to give a shout out to my teammate Alan. Going into every single game, I think he let that middle ball up maybe like twice out of the whole tournament. He was our center rusher every single game, and I think that giving us that edge of him rushing that ball and taking it from every single person put a lot of intimidation on some teams, and especially in our Doom finals, the first rush-ish stopped going for the ball after our first game.
Wow.
And I think that was very helpful for us.
That's saying a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. So you're sprinting on a trampoline. It's like a different type of running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were a few games where he got either pulled over the line or went over the line, because it was a lot different from our qualifier, which has the big orange pad in the middle where you can use to stop yourself. There's nothing to stop yourself. You either fight for that ball and get ripped over, or you slide over and get called out.
Very cool. Well, I do want to go back and ask you one question, Mick, and we kind of hinted towards it later. What are you going to do with the prize money that you won? Are there any plans specifically, or are you just happy to have it?
Me specifically?
Yep.
I probably, the first thing I did was pay off all my credit cards.
Oh, nice.
That was definitely one thing I did. And then with a little bit of extra cash, I just bought I do music on the side, so I bought some musical instruments, and whatever's left, I'm just kind of saving. Nothing too crazy right now. I pay for my flights to nationals, so I did that too.
Awesome. Did you ever think you were going to get paid one day, lots of money to play dodgeball? Did you ever see that happening?
Literally, I was just hanging out with Micah yesterday, and every time I see everyone, the first thing I just look at them, I say, we made $20,000 playing dodgeball. And like, I remember walking around with my USA shirt the other day, and I was just like, somebody asked me, oh, dodgeball. And I was like, yeah, it's a real sport. And they're like, oh, wow. Now I can be like, yeah, we made money actually doing it. So it's good to have that in your pocket, if someone questions it, because I've had a lot of people like think it's just still a joke, but definitely cool.
I don't know how this got brought up, and I mentioned it during the WDA recap as well, but I was in a room with some of my sergeants talking, and somehow dodgeball got brought up, and I was like, oh yeah, there's a tournament right now going on for $65,000 and it's going to be televised, and they're just like jaws dropped. They're like, what? Like, it went from haha like the movie to holy crap, I want to play now. And it's cool to have that, like you said, that in your pocket, to be like, yeah, like people are making money playing dodgeball. Granted, you have to go through a lot of work to do so, but it's there. And going back to the branding and all the content that's going to be released and has been released, it adds to our arsenal of take this crap seriously now. It's time. I want to ask you, Paige, what's it like being the first ever women's division champion on the team and setting that precedent?
It's it's still kind of sinking in. I think because this is the first women's division, that it's kind of like we haven't experienced what it's like to lose yet, I guess. So it's not like, I don't know, it's not like something we've been waiting for. It's just kind of, it happened, and now we're like, oh, what do we do now? How do we react to it? So it's not like where you go through 6 years of not winning an elite round and then you finally win one. You're like, oh shit, like I know what this is like now. So it's all a new feeling, I think. And I think next year the competition's going to be even better. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. Or I hope next year there's another women's division.
I would be hard pressed to think there wouldn't be.
Well, I understand from a financial aspect, like if you don't have enough interest to pull women into qualifiers and to regional, Skyzones like that, is it lucrative to continue like paying these players out like a prize money? So I get it if there's not, but I really hope there is. Yeah,
that's actually a really good point. I just mostly meant from any other women players that are watching and seeing this happen and be like, hey, I want to be on that cover page, or I want to be in that featurette, I want to be interviewed and stuff like that. So I think on multiple levels, it's awesome that this is being pioneered that way, and you guys took first, and that's just it's an incredible thing to set for future tournaments. And just as I asked Mick, what do you plan on doing with your prize money?
It's going right back into dodgeball. Like, I think there's another 4 or 5 tournaments already scheduled and to go through the rest of the year, all in LA. Thank you. So I'm flying out to LA a lot for tournaments and all that jazz. So pretty much all going right back into the sport.
Awesome. You're doing so good on watching the swear words too. I was just about to comment too. And I was like, hey, you've been doing really well, but then you blew it. So, but to be fair, it's been a pretty lengthy interview, so I forgive you.
Wait, what?
Oh, you said the A word. But
I said what?
You said the A word. How dare you?
Oh, please. That's not a bad word.
That's all good. Want to dive into the...
You said the S word in the very, very, like the first sentence of the freaking interview.
Part of why I took that out, so I had to redo it. I was like, why are you starting this thing off cussing? That's not your style, man. But get me off the X here. I want to move into the crowdsourced questions real quick. Some of these are for you, Mick, and Michael Coyve asked, did you feel like you had an edge playing Doom, having already beat them at the qualifier? And what did you think when Crisis lost? So we kind of covered the Crisis aspect, but did you want to address the Doom question?
Yeah, to answer Michael's question, I think we definitely did have an edge after beating the qualifier. I know that going into it, that was one of the first things we said in the huddle was, so as a captain, I chose not to play any of the final games, and I played the 5 that did the qualifier and beat them 3-0, and I just trusted that they could do it again, and I remember being in the huddle and saying that they did that once, so just repeat it, and that was pretty much the main concept going into that final game. So yeah.
Awesome. And then for you, Paige, he'd asked, you got less games than the guys and only the top 2 paid out. Did you feel it was fair?
Yeah. We already kind of went over that a little bit, just because they weren't holding regionals or qualifiers for women, so they didn't get that revenue from from the women's matches in the first place. So I feel really fortunate, actually, that we had a women's division to start with, that we got to play a full round robin with, our only 8 teams. We had half the teams that the guys had, right? Less than half?
Yeah. Well, 8, 10 teams versus 27, I think it was.
Yeah, it's a big difference. So we got paid $10,000 for the winning team, and men's got 20 for the winning team. So it's like, I feel really fortunate. I don't feel slighted at all. I think we got really lucky with it, and I hope we put on a good enough show to keep doing it. So
yeah, it would definitely be a different story if you guys produced 27 teams and went through the same motions as the Open. So
right, yeah. So no, I think that was totally fair.
Nice try, Koiv. Nice try. Just kidding. Orlando Hikuchiya, or as we all know and love him as Hooch, he asked you, Mick, what are your initial thoughts in the championship match against Doom when you realized you're about to pull it off? So maybe at that point you guys kind of had a feeling you're going to win. What was that like?
I didn't go in knowing we were going to win. I knew that they had a lot of experience in just playing in general. After winning 5 times, they had a lot of experience playing with us and learning how we play. So I went in with hopes to win and to believe in my team and understand that they've all adapted and they can all adapt to situations that happen. I think there were some mistakes that happened on the court during the games, and I remember yelling out at certain plays, and every time if we did lose a game, because it went to 2-2, so it was the final game. At the very end, it was Nate versus I believe it was Alan and Travion, and I just remember just yelling from the sideline so many different things, just trying to get people, whether they hear me or not, that's not the point. It's just to, if they hear a certain thing and then they play a certain way. And, I think it all just kind of came into fruition and worked out in the end.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I'll do the same thing, and I'm sure everyone does the yelling if they're out or if they're sitting out, and it's like, they probably don't hear me, but I'm going to yell anyway. And it's just probably as effective as yelling at the TV when,
I think some of my guys need it, though. Sometimes they are a little wild, and they like to go off sometimes. So it's definitely to scream at them and have them calm down. They do the same thing to me when I do something stupid. So that's kind of our little thing,
Fair enough. Yeah, some people might be receptive or need it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a rapid question, and we'll start with you, Mick. This is kind of a gimme, but do you feel like the quality of the tournament gets better each year? And what do you envision or predict for the future of UDC? And this was from Joe Martinez.
Yeah, I mean, this being my first official year here, after watching the streams and the play style over the years, I think it does get better every year. I think with the addition of the burden, burning a ball or whatever the rule is called, but you can't waste the ball. I think the quality of refs improved tremendously. I think the communication between the refs was tremendous. I think the ability for refs to communicate, to the players on how everything went, it increased tremendously this year. Nick said earlier there was only 1 yellow card, which, to be honest, going into this, I would have expected at least 10.
Tons, yeah.
I feel like I would have seen a lot more of that, and I think that goes to show players understood maybe a little bit more, or maybe they were taught a little more in the captain's meetings that this is serious now, and we have a huge audience watching. There's a lot of people who are going to take this sport seriously, and as players we also have we have to uphold that. I think that was a big influence for us as well. So I think, yes, it improves every year tremendously, and I think for the future, if we could repeat, the only things that I think could be different, if it was possible, would be either replays from cameras or any kind of little things that would, if you see in, any professional sport, you see like a quick instant replay or a quick little thing of that, because it is a very hard sport to ref, and that's why I give props to all those refs. But that's pretty much like the only thing that I could see being different. Everything else was great this year.
So now it's like those little fine tweaks, adjustments, add-ons that we can throw in there.
Yeah.
Very cool. Paige, I'm not sure if this would apply to you, but what are your thoughts on that one? Or do you feel like you're so new to it?
You said my name, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. It was run so well, and especially I want to hit on the reffing again. It was awful. No, I'm kidding. It was really good.
Big middle finger from Nick. Awesome.
No, it was so good that those are, I mean, that's a standard that I hope not just UDC, but, you know, more dodgeball is held to that standard, because it's so hard to see everything with 2 refs. No matter how trained you are, like, it's so hard to kind of see everything from, you know, unless you can like split your vision both ways. So having 6 refs on the court was just, God, it made it so easy. So I really hope that UDC continues to do that, as well as other leagues.
Definitely. Yeah, it's reffing's tough. I mean, I've been playing and reffing for a very long time, and I hate to admit it, but I'll be very questionable about some things I call. It's like, man, it's a tough thing. So speaking of reffing and whatnot, I do want to ask you though, Nick, I mean, you're probably best to ask this one, but what are your thoughts on Joe's questions? Do you feel like the quality of the tournament gets better each year? And what do you think is going to come in the future? What do you predict?
Well, yeah, definitely. The quality of this tournament gets better every year, because they look at past mistakes, they look at what they've done in the past and what worked and what didn't work, and they're already working to improve it in the future. So one of the first things that we we saw Jamie after the tournament at the hotel, and she said, "How did you think this tournament went for you guys? Was it well? You guys, we got a lot of great feedback. You guys did so well." And then she asked us straight up, "Would you guys think that replay would be a viable option for next year?"
Nice.
So we said, "Yeah, absolutely. You just have to have the same camera setup that you have for each court. If you're only running the 2 courts, it's easy to do." And this could be something that you could see in the future. So they're always working to improve the game and improve the tournament, because it is their product. It is their commercial for Skyzone that they get to put out every year. And they're putting a lot of money into this, so they want to make sure it's one of the best things they could do, and one of the best things for dodgeball.
That is awesome to hear. A lot of comments on that, but I might save that for the next episode. But that's great. I'm glad to hear that they're already asking for feedback, ready to incorporate and implement it, and just trying to improve. So that's phenomenal. But when I said I want to go back to the officiating, why do you do this? Like, what do you get out of reffing something this crazy and intense?
Well, I mean, going into this last year, I wanted to make sure, because I kind of feel that like sometimes the teams feel they get cheated out of stuff because of the reffing, because of bad calls or whatever. And I really wanted to start doing this because this is a chance for me to change the sport and a chance for me to make the sport better. And I always want to make sure that we get good officials in there. Like Paige said, we had at least 6 people per court. And so that means when we drop down to 1 court, we have at least 12. So during those top 8 matches, we had 10 refs. And I was talking to Alan today, because, I mean, if you go back to the World Cup, even during those finals matches, they had 2 refs. It's really rough, because in WDBF in Toronto last year, they had at least, I think they had 4, maybe 6 refs for those final games, the games that really count when you're going for medals. And it's really frustrating to hear when a tournament says, "Oh yeah, we had the 2 refs and they did well." You're like, 2 refs, you have so much staff there, how can you not put more refs on the court when the game is, like, you know, big games are on the line.
Yeah, it's high stakes.
On the line. And so when these controversial calls came up during the top 8, during finals, we would all come together. The addition of the radios really helped. And you get to speak to whoever saw the play, and you actually hear about 4 or 5 different opinions on what exactly happened and what they saw. So as a head official, it's really nice to hear that people that people had a really good eye on it and what exactly happened, and then you can make your decision from there. And so I feel like it's only going to get better from here on out. Even if we do add instant replay, it's going to be even better.
For sure.
I wanted to chime in. I think you guys definitely set a precedent for everybody else in every other league and every other person trying to run dodgeball or run a dodgeball tournament. I think that, like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of seeing people just constantly pointing and screaming at each other on the court. You know, it's unnecessary, and I think that it just makes it look like a joke almost sometimes. If there are 10 official refs there for a reason, let them do their job. And I think you guys did a great job, calling plays this whole weekend. And even when it was a close ball, whether it was a reset or whether you called them out, I think you guys did phenomenally with that. And I think everybody needs to learn from that and understand there are refs and there are players, and that everybody needs to understand that.
Yeah, first of all, anytime I have to ref with one other person, and it's no offense to the other person, but two feels like I'm risking it. Like that's even just for like a regular game. So seeing 6 refs and knowing that they're not playing, they have like their job is to ref is always it's just a good thing to standard to set. But I really like what you said, Nick, about you want to be part of that change. So instead of like complaining and about the refs, like you're actually doing something about it. So that's awesome. A little masochistic, but awesome. Joe also asked, and I think we can collectively agree, if Elite Dodgeball National Championships had a similar production to that of UDC, do you think it would gain more or less viewership and respect for the sport? I say yes. I think that's a simple yes, it would. Imagine you guys agree. Feel free to speak otherwise.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think
it needs that.
Right. It's like maybe it's like a wishful thinking kind of question. But moving on, I wanted to go ahead and wrap it up with any last minute thoughts or shout outs or post UDC plans that you guys may have, and we can start with you, Paige.
Oh my God.
On the spot immediately. No warning. Sorry.
No, I mean, I just, again, like, I was blown away by the reffing and by everyone playing. And like you said, it's like there were no pointing fingers. Maybe a couple fingers were pointed, but overall it was really, you trusted the refs just because there were so many eyes watching. And I so appreciated that, because I felt like we could actually play without worrying about, like, is this team cheating, or like, how are they getting around the rules? How are they bending the rules? So I really, really appreciated all the reffing. It was awesome.
For sure. How about you, Mick? Final thoughts?
I mean, yeah, I'll chime in on the reffing again. It definitely was very helpful for us going in, and I think there's been a lot of tournaments where players will come up to a ref before and, just reiterate certain things. And I think that right off the bat, they knew what people did, or if people were trying to cheat, or if people did certain things, and, they get called out for it. And I think that's great that they did that. And, just coming in as a new team, I definitely want to thank everybody that, kind of congratulated us, everybody that paid respects to us and congratulations off the court, and just we're proud for us to win everything.
Yeah, it's an incredible feat, and I hate to admit this, man, but I was talking to Crater, because I'm trying to figure out when we're going to do our Team Doom interview, and he was there, not to make this about them, but they were kind of bummed, obviously. I mean, it's a pretty big upset. It's like, hey, dude, I was kind of like on the low key rooting for you, just because I hate change. I talked about this in WDA. I wanted to see like a 6th win, because that's just incredible. But then after talking to you and getting to know you guys a little bit more and just seeing it, like what you guys have done is awesome. And I think, I think you gave a lot of teams out there some hope. So good job, man. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Nick, what are your shout outs, thoughts overall?
I mean, shout outs to Mick and to the rest of those guys. They're amazing. I wish I could have had Daniel and Trey to myself, but if I couldn't, it's the best team to go with. And amazing job from the women's division side. They killed it. Every team there was really played their hearts out, and all the players selected for that were incredible. They brought more entertainment than I hope everyone thought they were gonna bring in. They absolutely killed it this weekend.
For sure.
Oh, dab from Paige.
Oh boy. That's hilarious. Wasn't somebody saying like stop dabbing? I don't know what it was or what clip, but somebody
Everyone's saying stop dabbing.
Yeah.
They can't handle it.
No one's saying that.
If you're a champion, you should be able to do whatever you want. You can do the Macarena if you want to. Just dating myself, but awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for helping me recap this thing. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to, but once I reached out to you guys and you guys said yes, I was like super excited because just so much happened, and it's just such an amazing thing to watch. One thing I wanted to ask is, so this aired on the Ocho, right? ESPN did that weird sports segment. Is it going to be aired elsewhere? Are we going to be able to watch this like on TV next year, or how does that work?
You take it, Nick.
Oh, well, as of right now, I don't think they have anything lined up with ESPN. They aired last year's championships on ESPN. What was it?
3 or U?
Yeah, it was early in the morning, but yeah, I don't think they have anything lined up with ESPN. Mick, did you have anything?
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, the stuff that was on the Ocho was 2017's finals, because I know they had that deal with them last year.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I don't think I think just the streams right now are up, and whatever happens with that.
There's hours and hours to watch of last weekend's tournament.
Which I definitely I think teams should do something similar to what I do. Take your clips and make videos out of it. Make a highlight and just make content to share. It's hard to share a 5-hour stream and have people watch all that. Take your favorite moments and make a 1 minute, 30-second video and just share it with somebody.
Yeah, those are good to watch. And actually, thank you so much for bringing such joy to my life with the Brody alien one. God, I must have been responsible for like 500 of those views just myself. That was so great. Yeah, that's good advice, and that's a great way to send digestible content out there to people and get the word going. But with regards to the streams, I'm sure we'll find out if a major network's going to pick it up. But let's leave it at that. Again, guys, thank you so much. I know I said about, roughly an hour. I think we're past the 2-hour mark with recording and all the the checks and whatnot. But I definitely owe you guys some rounds when we get to nationals. So I'll see you then.
Awesome.
And Paige is dabbing.
Thanks, Steve.
Cool. So that was a recap of the 7th Annual Ultimate Dodgeball Championship hosted by Skyzone, and what an incredible production of dodgeball we were all treated to the weekend of August 3rd. As I've said throughout the episode and in the opening, it was just an incredibly branded, wonderful event, and I love being able to show people these items and these clips and these images to help move dodgeball that much further in the realm of being taken seriously. Huge thank you to Mick Wood, Paige Peterson, and Nick Factoran for helping me recap the event and sitting through about 2 hours of recording. Normally we don't go past the hour and 15 mark, but thank you guys so much for sticking it through and putting together what I hope is a good episode, especially since I had that nightmare that it was just terrible. So thank you guys so much for being such good sports, and then, like as I said, I definitely owe you guys a round or two when we meet at nationals. Major congratulations and shout out to teams To and Vendetta for taking it this year, and best of luck in the future. And obviously a side shout out to Vendetta for just being the first women's team in the first women's division to take it. I'm sure, as I've seen in all the clips and interviews and photos, you guys really set a solid standard, just all the women's teams in general that showed up, and we really hope that next year we see more teams showing up and making this just a full-blown division with the Open. Also, a major thank you to everyone that refed, provided stats, and basically did everything and anything they could to contribute to making this UDC probably the best one so far to date. From its humble beginnings a couple years ago to now, it is incredible to see how polished it is. And again, I cannot get over the fact that I saw people I know looking like serious athletes from like a major sports production. So I cannot wait for the 8th one. I will have to be there. Just even if I'm reffing or watching as a spectator, I must be there. With regards to this recap, I tried doing something a little bit different without being so regimented on the players and the teams, and just kind of inviting members of the winning teams and maybe one person that had a solid outside perspective. So if you like the format, if you noticed a difference, positive or negative, please let me know. If you hated it, loved it, felt informed, felt like I missed a lot, let me know as well. As always, I love the feedback. I appreciate it. I want this to be just as good of a contribution to the sport as anything else. So thank you to everyone that submitted the questions, and for people that are giving me feedback. I really appreciate it. But that all being said, have a great rest of your evening, a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Starting with Nick. I f***ed that up. I'm gonna just reread this a second.
Oh, hey. Take it back.
That was bad.
Take it back.
What did you f*** up?
Everything. I just like. Yeah.